Greetings, everyone! My name is Eric, and welcome to the first in a series of videos on Pixel Game Maker MV. It is an engine, game development engine that came out recently, and its goal is basically to allow you to make 2D, pixel art style games, either it be side-scrolling or top-down view and stuff like that. But it wants you to be able to do that without ever having to write a single line of code. So basically what you see here is what I was able to make without any code at all. I have a little player that runs around, he attacks, he has health up here in the top corner. And then I've also created an enemy that has a detection box, and when he gets close to me, he hits me and knocks me back. And I take damage. Yay! But I can also hit him! Because frick you! And he dies. I also can die. I have tile sets and all this other stuff. The camera follows me. So basically what we're going to do in this series is I'm going to teach you how to basically get to what I have here. So stick around. This will be part one, where I'm going to get you introduced to the engine itself. Okay, for starters, this engine is available here over on Steam. So you can just pick it up. It's about $84.99, so it's $85. However, there is a demo here which you can pick up to follow along with this tutorial. So definitely pick that up. I really like this engine. I really like the way it works. I feel like for $85, it gives you a lot of flexibility. But obviously, we'll be able to do that. You can also click to visit the website, view the manual, see the updates, all that stuff. Go to the community. It's still relatively new-ish. Like, I believe it's been around for a little while, but it just released on Steam on the 19th of September. So they've been trying to mess with it, but they're always taking feedback from the community, which is great. So if you pick it up and you have some feedback on some bugs, on any features you think should be added or kind of altered to make things a little better, then you're more than welcome to come into the discussions of the community page or from the website or wherever else they have, and basically give them some feedback, and they will read it. They take it very seriously, and they will try to do what they can. Also, there is a Discord, an unofficial Discord. So if you would like, I will link that in the description as well as the Steam page. But anyway, if we come right here, I have a little icon here on my desktop. So let's get it open. So yeah, it opens as a Steam thing. Pixel Game Maker MV. Before you ask, this was not made by the devs of RPG Maker, from what I know. It was made by Kadokawa Corporation, which I believe is a different company. But they obviously are trying to make this in kind of that vein of things. So you can see I've been working on different things. We're going to want to create a brand new project. So first, give it a game title. So yeah, my goal for this tutorial is we're going to make kind of like a Zelda-like type game. So just a 2D action RPG from the top down kind of perspective. So we're just gonna call this Totally Not Zelda. Let's actually put some. We're gonna call this Totally Not Zelda, and this is the project name. So these are two different things. This is the title of your game, and then this is the project's name. This is what it'll be saved as. And then here you can choose where you want it to save. I do not want it to save there. Please stop defaulting to that. I made my own little folder right here. So we're going to put it in. We're going to create a folder. Totally Not Zelda. Just going to save in here. And I'm going to click Create Blank Project. I suggest you to do that as well. I will be providing some assets and stuff so that you guys can follow along. If you do not click this, then it will load a bunch of assets from the whatever template you decide to go with, whether you do a 2D side scroller or 2D top down. You can also download sample games if you would like, but let's not get into this. We'll hit next. So now it's asking what type of game do you want to make? It asks you this because it's going to kind of help you out with a few different things. So it'll give you a couple things to kind of start you out. It kind of kind of uses these as templates. So we're going to be doing a top view action game. We're going to hit next. Now we're going to pick the tile size. So as you can see, it gives you a bunch of options. This was basically what your tiles, which is the individual cells or blocks of things, are going to be. And this is in pixels. I'm going to be making mine 16 by 16. I'm going to be using my own custom system here. I think what I went with was, because I think I go with whatever number is divisible by 8. So I think initially for 10 by 9, it does this. But that obviously does not divide by 16 very well at all. So if I do 16 times 12, that's 192. That's a bit much. 16 times 8, 128. Let's do 16 times, what was it, 12, 10. That's 160. And I believe if I do 16 times 11, it should be, there we go, 176. I think that's what I went with, 176. So this is what I'm going to go with because it gives you a close to 16 by 9 aspect ratio, but it just works for me. Number of players, you can have this be multiplayer. I'm just going to stick with 1 player. You can also have it set to defaults of like 4 by 3 and 16 by 9 aspect ratios. And then these game development challenges are for the contests that they hold. Okay. Now it's creating the thing. So the first thing it gives us is this right here, which is the main menu scene. Now, let me quickly, this first episode is just going to be me going over some things. So for starters, the UI here is still going to be updated, hopefully. They're working on the UI to make it a little prettier, make it look a little nicer and easier to navigate. But let's start with things. This big old thing here, honker in the middle, this is your viewpoint. This is your canvas. This is where you see and place everything. As you can see, you have a little floating navigator. So if you want, you can use this to get around. However, you can just simply hold the middle mouse button down and you can drag around. You right click, you can select, if you right click, you select things that are on the here, but I'll get to that later. And then you can right click to do some things, but that's not what we want. Over here is an inspector window. Obviously there's nothing here because I don't have anything selected, but any options that you might have from anything you select here in the in these windows here will show up over here with a bunch of options. So that'll show up in a minute. Up here you have your layers. This is you can have different layers on your canvas. Normally on regular scenes, this will determine the display order of things you place. So that's pretty nice. But here on the menu scene, this menu scene is actually its own kind of special thing. And I'll get to that in a minute, but let's throw up here. This is where you will hold some of your items like your tiles, your objects, physics calculations. You got others for like cameras and stuff. You're wondering what some of these things are. Tiles is basically what you're going to use to draw things. So the floor, the walls, decorations, grass, whatever, that's what you're going to use to draw things. Objects are what this game, this engine is an object-based game engine. So objects are the things that'll be placed in your environment that have some type of actions that they run. So they're the things that do things. So the player is an object. Enemies are objects. Anything that works in that way. Things that can move around, things that can be interacted with, stuff like that. So that's where objects come into play. Physics calculations are the different types of physics items that you can make. So as you can see, you can make things like, you can make circles, squares, you can make like bonded, rope, spring, axle. Like there's a bunch of things here that I have yet to really get into. So I'm not as familiar with these things yet. But I do know that these are all based on calculating physics. So I'm guessing with explosion, it allows you to make like an explosion, which can knock things around, stuff like that. So it's pretty nice. Then you have other. Now, other is pretty cool because this is how you can do some cool stuff, like you can place a camera. As you can see, there's already a camera in this scene. So every scene will start with a camera already in it, usually. And so you can just like select this. This is where you place a camera. So you can go like that and then see how I can place a camera since I clicked on it. But you see there's already a camera here. You have courses. You have different kinds of courses. These are, I think, things that you can make objects follow. You can even make the camera follow it. So this basically just determines, using vector lines, something for an object or the camera to follow along a path. And so you can have straight ones, you can have curved ones, you can have circular ones. Slopes are interesting. Slopes are how you create angled paths for the players to walk on. So if you want something to be at an angle and you want the player to react to it in an angle and, you know, react in a natural way, that's how you would do it. You would place down a slope, which just has you click here, it creates a slope, and now the player will collide with the slope the way you would hope for it to do. And you can even set whether the player or an object is affected by slopes or not. So that's everything up here. Now down here you have kind of your different selections of things. So first you have scenes. This lists off all the different scenes that you have. So right now we're on the menu scene, which is, again, a very special one. If you hit this little cog wheel down here, it gives you a setting for the scene. Now, as you can see, you can't really edit much on the menu thing, because this is designed to be things like your UI and stuff like that. So this is supposed to be like overlay-based stuff. So anything you want to be overlaid on your game, be it a menu scene, be it options, a HUD, where you keep things, like that's where you're going to put. You're going to put it in here, and you can make multiple layers, which you can hide and show through commands in the objects. So that's how you can kind of fill with stuff like that. But if you were to make another scene, if you were to make like your own custom scene, you would be able to adjust all these things, which we will talk about when we get to the point of actually creating a scene. Then you have objects. This is just your list of objects. So starting point is something you can kind of like place down as like where the player spawns and stuff like that. But you'll also have like different objects that you'll be creating here in a minute. And then this is how you place them down. Again, physics calculations. This is where you can put down your physics calculations, calculating stuff. The same thing. And then you can also have like physics. Oh. I think you can like have it so you can preview the physics, which is interesting. So this is where those would be listed. And remember, this is what's currently in the scene. This is things you have available to put in the scene. And then in other, again, you have the camera, which, like I said, once you have something selected, now you can see we have options over here. So you can change things like how the settings work. So default camera position, you can either have it controllable player object. You can have it set by coordinates, so you can like set the thing wherever you want it. Right now it's 0, 0. And remember, it always bases it on the top left corner. So 0, 0 is whoop up here. You have the camera display size, which I usually try to keep the display size to whatever my screen resolution is. This engine has a little bit of issues with scaling that I'm not happy with, which I'll get to in later videos, but it's a little weird. But then you have motion settings, which right now it's set to controllable player group, which just means it's going to follow anything that is labeled as a player group. So if you have a player in the room, it'll follow him. You can have the target be none, which means it's just going to be stationary. You can make it follow an object, self-explanatory. And you can make it follow a course. Like I said earlier, if you set a course, it'll follow it. Then you have things like scroll and show all players. So that means if a player moves somewhere, it's going to try and follow them and to show them all. So if there's multiple players, it'll move around to try and adjust to that. And same with increase or decrease display to show all players. If you have multiple players and you have one player like way over here and then one way over here, it'll zoom the camera out to try and compensate for that. Which you can set the scaling right here, so you can set how much max is. And then you can set some switches to enable and disable the camera, which is pretty handy. Okay, so up here, let me come back up here real quick. So as I said, you can make multiple layers here. You do that by clicking this little plus icon. So now I have menu 1, and then I have another menu 1, which you can right click, change name. So I can just go call this blah. You can also delete it by just clicking that. Once you have one created, these arrows allow you to cycle which one you have active. So this is important. Whichever one you have highlighted and active is the one you're currently working on and editing. So always make sure you're on the right layer. Oh, sorry about that. Hit the mic. And then you can also reorganize them by just clicking, dragging, and moving them around. That. So that's the scenes tab. As you can see, there's multiple tabs up here. So we're currently in scene. Let's go over and let's actually go into a different thing here. I'm going to start over here with resources. Resources is basically all the images or all the things in your game. So all the things that objects and animations, blah, 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 are going to connect to. Basically everything. So here you have images, which is just all the images you're going to use. It has a couple here for you, which are just fonts. You can load your own. This is where you would put your sprite sheets, your tiles, and all that stuff. Any images that you want displayed, all that kind of stuff. So you can put it here. Next, you have fonts, which is just all your fonts, and you can have these set by creating from images, which is really nice. So you just have them set here, and as you can see, it has a bunch of default ones, and then it has a default which just uses a regular font, which is pretty nice. And you can also change like some of the things like fixed width and customize the width and stuff like that. Next, you have text. This is just where you would make here, let me. So this is where you would make like some type of text information. So if you wanted it to, like, if you wanted the player to like blah, block. So that looks like you pick a default font. I cannot speak today. And this is also where you can see the fonts in actions. So you do that. That one looks like black, and then you have default. Over here, it gives you a preview. And then you can also select other languages if you would want to put it in languages. You can put the character spacing, which is just, you know, how close the different characters get to each other, like the spacing. And then line spacing is just if I do this and go howdy, this determines how far apart they are. That's what you can do there. So that's how you set text. If you want to change the name, just click on it once. Call that, we'll call that block. And then, yeah, so if you click on something, if you click on just this, it'll allow you to do that. So you do have to be careful. Sometimes it'll automatically. Over here, we have videos. This is, so if you want to add any like video files that you want to be able to play and stuff like that, you would add them here. So pretty nice. Background music. This is where you're going to add some music that you want played in the background. So you could just like right click, add background music. Now, please note that all background, like all the sounds in this game are OGG format. So you do need all your files to be in OGG. So please keep that in mind. Let's actually add, oh, excuse me. Yeah, let's add something real quick just so you can see how this works, or just so you can see kind of how it looks. We'll go into audio. How do I not have anything already? I'm so bad. I'm so bad at this. Simple. This is an old file that I have. Do I have anything in OGG? Okay, here. So you add that. And then right here, you have some settings. So right here, you have the path for where it's from, which you can load new ones. Update means if you make a change to this file outside of the engine, that change will not take place until you hit the update button. Once you hit update, then it'll take into consideration any changes you made to the file. Open is obviously, you can open the folder where it's contained in. Here's your playing and stop, so you can do like that to play it, do that to stop it. You can loop it or not loop it, so that just determines whether it loops. And then you can do audio source adjustments, so you can change how loud it is. You can change its balance from left to right ear. You can change its pitch. Again, you can listen to what your effects are doing, and then, of course, loop it or not. Now we have sound effects. Same thing. You add a sound effect. Sound effect. You just plug it in here, and this is where you get kind of your sound effects, which Right now you won't be able to hear, but you play the sound, you can loop the sound, update it, blah, blah, all that cool stuff. Voices I've not used, but it's the same thing. It's if you want to add some like voice acting and stuff, you can basically put it here. I don't have anything to. You can add it right here if you would like to. Then you have variables. Variables are those things, just like in any type of programming language, that are basically just containers that hold information. Like these variable, like you have number of players. By the way, the engine comes with a bunch of pre-defined ones that have that you can't really edit that much. You can like define them somewhat. You can give them information, but you can't edit them from here. Like, you can't delete it. You can't change the name or anything like that. These are the built-in variables, so you can use them if you would want. So you have things like number of players, which is how many players you have, one-player objects, instances, controller IDs, all that kind of stuff. You have the file slot allows you to determine which slot the save file will be. So when you add saving, you can do that. Yeah, and then you can also adjust things like destination file slot, so where things are. You can adjust mouse coordinates. You can do background volume, sound volume, voice volume, so you can adjust those dynamically, which is really nice. And of course, you can make your own variables by just going add variable, this blah, and here's its value is a number. I believe they're all integer based. I don't think any of them have any string information. And then you can give it a note here, and then you can also have don't keep on game save. So when you save the game, you can make it so this variable is not saved in the information. That's important if there's anything you don't want to save. And then you can give it a note. Switches are basically Boolean toggling. So basically it's either true or false or on or off. And you have things like, and these ones all define stuff. So these basic ones have their own things they can do. So you have reset, which is reset variables and switches used by project gameplay. You can save your file. You can load a file, copy file, delete file, check file. You have the default camera. You can show a loading screen if you would. And then you have the end game, which just is the game. And then, of course, like I said, you can make your own variable or switch, lock, switch. And again, you can set it to either not save or save. You can set it whether it's automatically true or false by default. So this is pretty cool. And you can also, I'll get to this in a second. Then you have animation onlys. I honestly don't know what the hell these do. Okay, so apparently you can add GIFs and whatever the heck is SSPJ. I'm gonna figure out what SSPJ is. But you can add GIFs that you can have here, and you can have those things play. So you can add stuff like that. So that's all your resources. From the resources, I'm going to go over to animations. Animations is pretty simple. This is all your animations that you create. So if I hit animation, you can give it a name. You can tell whether you want it to be a motion, which is used for objects, an effect, which is something you can call, or a particle, which is, again, something you can call. A lot of these things you can make presets, so you can select an image for it. You can do animation only, so if you want the effect to be from an animation that you brought in. You can do partitioning, which partitioning just means how many pixel blocks it's made up of and stuff like that. Particle effects, same thing. Although in this one, you can create your own special ones. So if you would like to make a bunch of special ones, you can do that right here. And obviously in motion, you would select an image by clicking that plus. Select the image that you want to use in your animation, so one of the resources. So you would put like your sorry, my voice is getting dry, or my throat's getting dry. You would put like your sprite sheets and stuff like that. So that's where you would put them. And then obviously I'll go into that in further depth later. You have your objects tab, which holds all your objects. So if I just go, boop, let's add an object. We'll just call this player. You can select what animation he's going to use or they're going to use. You can say what group they're in, which is very important. And then you can make it so that the object is controlled by input device, which can only be done by the player. So if you switch to enemy, you can't do it. Here you have settings for things. So allow attack detection hits by object groups. So this lets you know what attack detection can affect this group or this object in the player group. So right now it would be set to enemy group, but you can also make it so other players can hurt him. Then you have wall detection, which is, I hate that they call it wall. That's a typo. That should be collision detection because it's not wall. This is wall. Okay. But anyway, although I think it also uses wall detection. This basically says, hey, can I bump into this object and do a collision? So you can say what group in. And then this is your tile groups. So right now it just has the default one. This allows you to have collision with certain tiles. So that's how you set that kind of stuff. And then when you hit OK, you get this stuff. This is where you do all your state machine stuff, and I'll get into that later. This is how you basically program, quote unquote, program your game. It uses visual scripting. Again, I will get into this in a following episode. It has a bunch of stuff. Transitions are just how you go from one scene to another. So you can either have screen flow. You have your start, which then you can have it linked to other scenes. Then you have portals, which you can create. Portals are just things that you walk into that teleport you from one place to another. Plugins, so you can add a plugin here. You can make your own, which you would have to use JavaScript or CoffeeScript. Oh, by the way, this engine does support JavaScript and CoffeeScript. So if you know either of those two scripting languages, you can program. So you can make your own plugins and stuff like that. But you can also add a couple of the official ones from the actual official website. So auto tiles, which is based on the RPG Maker MV tile sets. You have show messages, which is pretty cool. So it allows you to just kind of pop a message up on screen. Choices, which allows you to have choices on screen, and then a mini map, which is pretty cool. And then it even tells you how to configure it. And then the last one you have are your tiles, which these are just the graphics used to paint the world. So this is where you would create all your different tile sets, different ones that you can use. So you can make custom ones for different scenes and worlds. Other than that, you come up here, you have your file, which has your creating projects, open project, closing project, save, blah, 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 blah. Build game, which allows you to make the final copy of your game, which you can then distribute to people. Archive the project, never use that, don't know what that does, and then you can, of course, close the program. You can edit, so where you can add folder, add new, and this is just, it depends on whatever thing you're in. So whatever screen you're in, it'll add a folder or add a new of whatever screen you're in here. And then obviously you can do your copy, cut, paste, blah, 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 undo imports, so you can import stuff, and then you can do a test play, which is F5. You can also do that from up here. You can hit test play from up here. But I always use the F5 key just because it's what I know. You have your settings, so you have things like your project settings, which has a bunch of stuff. So if you want to change any of this stuff, you can, that we made in the beginning, you can change all that stuff. I'll get into a lot of this stuff in the next episode, so stick around. You can add some more languages if you would like. So that's pretty nice. So if you want to have different languages, you add them. You can set up things like loading screens, logos, and stuff like that. So it's a bunch of really cool stuff. You have your controls. So this is how you set up what keys and what buttons do what. As you can see, it can use an Xbox, a PlayStation controller, and direct input, as well as mouse. And then here you say what the name is and what it does. So this is how you set up all your controls, which it has a bunch already set up, but you can obviously change whatever you need to change based on how you're feeling and what you want to do. So you can change all that. Sounds, this is how you can overall change the sounds during gameplay of different things. You can set it based on certain things here, or you can just do it overall. So that's kind of up to you. Then you have your game data, which has title. You can put your name here. You can say the genre. You can add an image, just kind of like a nice little splash image or something. And then you can put some content. So you can say a description about it. Player character management, which is just adding stuff. You add an object and tell it what player it is, what player is what. So if you had multiple players, you would have that. Group management, you can create your own groups. So you can either create object groups or tile groups. So this is where you can make them. So if you want to have your own special groups for certain things that can only interact with certain things, then you can set it up here. That's all your settings. You have your different tools, which that's what these all things are. So this is how you get to them if you want to get it from here. So if I click here and scene, it just takes me over to here. But you can just do it by clicking. And then you also have some options here, which is basically background color, and you can save the project on test play. So when you hit F5 or hit this, it automatically saves. And then, yeah, this is just whatever. If you want a background color, you can set a default background color rather than this clear stuff here. So that's pretty awesome. And then the help, you have like, if you hit help, you can open, please open HTML, please. Opens you to the website, which contains a bunch of information that you can use. Like here's your update history, getting started, basics of editing, scenes, tells you what all these things are in far greater depth than I can. So I definitely suggest that. There's also tutorials. So you can open up the tutorials and you can do some of these tutorials, which is pretty cool. So if you like to do these tutorials, go ahead. It'll pretty much get you into all this stuff pretty quickly. But if you would rather watch the video, I very much appreciate it. And then, of course, you have your version information. So that's pretty much it. That is all the basic information for the different things. Also, yeah, you can just click this to open up, to undo thing. Then you can click this to go to help. But yeah, that's pretty much all the main things about the screen. I know this was a bit of a long video, and I'm just kind of babbled for a bit, but I just wanted to get you kind of like right into the fray of things really quickly. So in the next video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to actually start making the game proper, which is going to start with us importing our resources, creating our player object, and getting the player object to move. We may also do tiles, I'm not sure yet. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later, everyone.